Hey, what's up guys, TechTitan here, and this is the Samsung Galaxy S25 FE, and I've spent several hours with this phone, so I'm ready to give you guys sort of a first impressions. I will be having a camera review and a full dedicated review on this device once I spend more time with it, but with the hours that I spent with this phone, I think I'm ready to give you guys a solid first impressions. So basically, let's go ahead and start with the design itself. One of the biggest things that they changed from the previous generation is they moved from sort of a glossy glass to more of a matte finish. It still is made out of glass, so the back has the Gorilla Glass Victus Plus, which is supposedly a little bit more durable than the previous generation. And also on the back you do have your triple camera setup, which we will discuss later on. But as far as the camera lenses themselves, or the camera housing itself, they do have these sort of protruding rings that is kind of hard to see, but I'll do my best. And I guess that does sort of raise the question of durability, but we'll see. Let's just put that to the side. Now, also on the right hand side, you will get your power button, volume up and down, and the frame of the device is made out of metal yet again. So that's also really good. On the bottom, you do get your USB-C, your SIM tray, as well as your bottom facing speaker. And this phone does support 45 watts of fast charging speed, which is really good, considering something like the Galaxy S25 only caps at 25 watt. Think about that for a second. Also, as far as sort of protection from nature, this phone does have IP68 dust and water resistance. So you can immerse this phone for up to 1.5 meters for 30 minutes. I highly do not sort of recommend that, but if you want to do it, you're more than welcome to. Overall, the design is definitely refined. Yet again, this seems to be the theme for Samsung devices this year. So definitely a refined design. Not too much has changed, but the changes that did happen are definitely welcome. So let's speak a little bit on the display side of this device. So from the display front, you get a 6.7-inch display, 2340 by 1080p, so the same resolution as the previous generation. You also get a really nice brightness, so this phone does peak at 1900 nits, and also HDR10 plus support is here. You get 120 Hz of adaptive refresh rate, so that's also fantastic. But the biggest thing that they really changed, in my opinion, is the thinner bezels. So the previous generation had an 88% screen to body ratio, where this current generation is 89.2% screen to body ratio, which by numbers may not sound significant, but trust me, it made the difference, meaning that watching videos and just basically whatever you do on this display is going to be an even better experience, and the thinner bezels do provide a more immersive experience. So definitely, again, welcome refinement from what they did from the previous generation. It may not be the craziest brightest screen that you'll ever see or the best that Samsung has to offer, but it's definitely really good for a $650 device. Definitely thumbs up in that regard. Now, next in the conversation is definitely the performance side of things. And again, Samsung decided to go with their own Exynos 2400 4nm architecture processor. It's a 10-core processor with the X-Eclipse 940 for your GPU, 128 gig of base storage, 8 gigabytes of RAM. I kind of wanted them to use Qualcomm processors, especially let's say the previous generation flagship processor, like they used to do on the when they first introduced the Galaxy S FE edition. But I'm not saying that this phone doesn't perform well, and it does. It's a fantastic performing device. It's not up to par, obviously, with the flagships, but for whatever you do on the basically the daily tasks, this phone performs very well. Now, I do have to test this phone more extensively, and you'll see that basically in my full review to sort of give you a conclusion on how well it actually performs in more harsher conditions. So stay tuned for that. Now, the camera itself is a triple camera setup with a 15 megapixel main sensor at f1.8, an 8 megapixel f2.4, as well as a 12 megapixel ultra wide. So the 8 megapixel is a telephoto lens, and this phone is capable of shooting 8K at 30 frames per second, but with a 128 gig base storage, I really don't recommend that. So keep that in mind. The front camera is a 12 megapixel that can also shoot 4K at up to 60 frames per second. And overall, though, the camera did also receive some improvement. So you do have the ability to go up to 30x of zoom, and I did take some pictures on this phone, but it's not really enough for me to draw a full conclusion on how well the camera is. For that, you will have to stay tuned for the full camera review, which means if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do so. But overall, though, the pictures that it takes so far seem to be pretty solid. And so here's a quick sneak preview at the video quality.
Hey, what's
And we'll
up
get
guys,
back with some
TechSign here,
final
and
words.
this is your video test of the Samsung Galaxy S25 FE. And you can switch between a couple of modes, so you can switch between your main sensor and your wide angle, and it's a really smooth transition, and you can go up to 12x zoom. The quality is going to be crap, but you can do it if you want to. And you can also go directly to your selfie camera if you want to record simultaneously between your selfie camera and your main sensor. So very well utilized camera system here from Samsung. The quality is also up to par. Definitely appreciated.
Okay, so here's my initial conclusion. The S25 FE is definitely a more refined version than the previous generation, and it brings in some welcome improvements. Now, in my personal opinion, off of my first impressions, if you do have the S24 FE, I wouldn't jump the gun and just upgrade to the S25 FE. But if you're coming from the S23 model, this should be a pretty good buy considering the $650 price point. And I'm sure that the price will come down eventually within the next couple of months, so be on the lookout for that. But with that being said, I want to thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned for the full review on the camera review, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Make sure you subscribe. Thank you for watching.